It's that time of year and the upgrade demon is calling you again. What do you do? Well, if you're like a growing number of people, you try to hold on to your device as long as possible before upgrading. Well, maybe. In the world of upgrades, we are fed a steady stream of commercials and social signals telling us to buy the latest, fastest, and most shiniest device, whether we actually need it or not. You could be nearing the end of your phone contract or the lease on your car. There's always a niggling feeling to upgrade to the newer model. And this feeling is stronger, especially when they release a newer model every single year. As our throwaway culture is getting more ravenous, I'm starting to ask myself the question, the real reason why I'm upgrading. Do I need those 3 cameras on my phone? Are those extra features really worth $1,000? And regardless of how much willpower you may think you have, when you see a promotional video in slow motion unveiling a beautifully designed device, the idea of not having it and being left out leads you to your good old friend FOMO. I'm one of those people that is starting to be put off by upgrades, by the sheer cost of them. Back when the iPhone 4 was released, it was $449. And over the years, the price of the flagship model has slowly increased. Paying for the flagship model is well over £1,000 or dollars. Replacing old things for new ones is fairly common. So why do we feel the need to buy into it every single year? This can be an accumulation of things, so let's dive into it. So first of all, you've got something called the primacy effect. So this basically means people tend to remember the first piece of information better than information that is being presented later. For example, let's say you was first made aware of a product by watching an online review. That information is more likely to stick in your head than information that you're going to hear later on. It doesn't mean that old information doesn't hold its weight, but the new information will be at the forefront of your mind. However, there's something that takes hold more than the primacy effect, and that's called the recency effect. And that is people tend to remember the most recent information that is presented to them. 2 very similar and powerful effects. We overvalue the most recent news because that's the last thing that has been presented to us. And every year we are fed these new features and we forget the old ones. These new features promising ease of use and a better experience. I experienced this a while ago, actually not too long ago, and it's to do with this camera that you're seeing me film with today. There was an upgrade for it. I thought to myself I could upgrade, and there were so many reviews. It was all over the camera sort of world, and this was deemed to be the next big thing. But upon reflection, the amount of money that I'd be spending to upgrade to a newer one, would it really reflect in the quality of my work? No, not as it stands now. The improvement wouldn't be worth it, and you guys probably wouldn't even notice the difference. Which leads me on to my next point. The majority of upgrades are incremental, and the software bear the bulk of it. Your previous iPhone still makes calls and text messages, but may lack that extra camera. Talking about phones, more specifically iPhones, some people are arguing that these products are being made to be obsolete within a matter of a few years. So let's talk about planned obsolescence. I'll be coming back to iPhones, don't you worry. Planned obsolescence is when a company limits a life cycle of a product. Subsequently, this manipulates people's buying behaviours to buy another one. Maybe the product has been made with weaker or poorer materials so that it doesn't last. Let's go back to the 1950s, where planned obsolescence had become a thing, and a dominant factor in mass production, with things no longer built to last. People were persuaded to shop, and they did. Techniques were used so it was easy to buy, and credit was easy to obtain. Welcome to consumerism. Some industries, such as the fashion industry, still have this to this day. They have predicted planned obsolescence, with items only lasting a season. Fast forward to today, companies such as Apple are being accused of foul play through its software updates, slowing down older models of iPhones, giving the impression that your device is no longer good and you need to get a new one. So before upgrading, ask yourself, how will I use those extra features? And for me, there's also some conscious thought of being brand loyal. When you get tied up into the whole ecosystem of a company such as Apple, and you have the iPhone, the iPad, the Mac, it's hard to leave. Especially when you download a ton of apps. Who really wants to lose out on all the money that you spent accumulating over the years, spending all this money on apps? I mean, the process of moving would be a bit of a headache, not impossible, but it's just something that I'm not really wanting to do. which therefore makes me stay with the brand. And the logical solution for any upgrades I would get would be with Apple, as that's the device I've always had. In the past, when I've upgraded, I've not paid not even 1 millisecond into considering a Android device, even if there is better alternatives out there. And this is probably a question that I'd put to myself the next time I come across this situation of upgrading. Usually upgrading is a luxury, and more often than not, your current device already does the job, and it will last a lot longer than you actually think. In my experience, whenever I've upgraded to a newer device, that feeling of having something new and that exciting feeling of, yes, I've got the latest device, literally only lasts for around 2 weeks or so, maybe a month at a push. But anything over 2 weeks, I would say I'm actually not really that bothered about it anymore. I guess the main point that I want to communicate in this video is to really think about what you need. Just because the hardware manufacturers are on schedule to release a new product doesn't mean their upgrades are worth making. In reality, our phones all look the same and do the same thing. Most people can't tell the difference between the iPhone or the next. Or if you take a picture, no one ever says to you, oh, that was taken on the Samsung. Or if someone's calling you, you never ask them, what device are you using? It doesn't matter. I mean, can you tell the difference between these two phones? And also there's an element of when you upgrade to the latest thing, it's a status symbol, especially in those first few weeks when that device is being released. Having that new product means you had the money to get it. And some people like to flash it around showing, yes, I have the latest new device. So how can we refuse to play the game of upgrades and focus on what we already have? We can either do the following. Go without, which is what most people avoid. This would be quite a radical decision in most people's opinions. If we entertain this path, we are really forced to think about necessities versus desires. You wouldn't buy a new car just because the brakes need to be replaced. The same goes for your device. So it's worth looking into the cost of actually trying to repair it as opposed to just buying a new one. And lastly, replace it. And this doesn't mean upgrading. You can either get an existing model or in some cases you can actually downgrade. I remember when I was trying to save up my first camera, I was trying to reduce my costs. So instead of upgrading to a better iPhone, I opted for a cheaper handset, which worked out to be cheaper to pay off monthly. The main takeaway that I'd like to impart on you is just the psychology that is being played in order for consumers to be spending more and sometimes unnecessarily spending money. And sure, newer phones offer all these fancy features, fingerprint readers, face scanners and more. But how much more benefit are these extra features really bringing you? Millions and millions of dollars is being spent every single year to convince the consumer that your old products are redundant. And when you get these newer products, you're going to feel a certain type of way. The real question is, do you really need to upgrade? That brings me to the end of the video. If anything did resonate with you, please smash the like button and consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. And I'll see you guys in another one. Bye bye.